Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. U.S. officials have confirmed what many have widely feared. The BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico is the worst oil spill in U.S. history. On Thursday, the U.S. Geological Survey said the well has been spewing between 504,000 and more than 1 million gallons of oil a day. That means a minimum 19 million gallons have spilled into the Gulf over the past 5 weeks, easily surpassing the size of the 1989 Exxon Valdez disaster in Alaska. The highest estimate would mean a spill of over nearly 39 million gallons. The news comes as BP continues its top kill operation to stop the spill by pumping heavy drilling, mud, and cement into the breached mile-deep well. On Thursday, BP said the procedure was going well, but then later announced it had been suspended for 18 hours. BP has since resumed the effort and says it hopes to determine this weekend whether it succeeded. Marine scientists, meanwhile, have discovered what they say is a massive new plume of oil stretching 22 miles beneath the Gulf, the second such discovery since the spill. Experts believe the plume resulted from the toxic dispersants used by BP to break up the oil. In contrast to the first, the new plume is headed inward towards the habitats of many fish and other species. On Thursday, oceanographer Ian McDonald of Florida State University said BP has been minimizing the size of coastal areas affected by the spill.
I cannot understand why BP persists in making these claims on television that are so patently false and so easily disproved. I mean, don't they have PR people telling them that the best thing to do is to fess up and admit what they have to do? I mean, this is absolutely shocking, and I can't believe that they're persisting in this.
The Obama administration, meanwhile, has formally announced its suspension of oil exploration off the Alaskan coast, as well as of lease sales in Virginia and the Gulf of Mexico. On Thursday, President Obama also said he would extend the moratorium on new deepwater drilling permits for 6 months and halt operations at 33 deepwater wells in the Gulf of Mexico. Obama's heading to the Gulf Coast today in just his second visit to the region since the disaster began. In his first news conference in 10 months, Obama defended his administration's response to the spill.
As far as I'm concerned, BP is responsible for this horrific disaster, and we will hold them fully accountable on behalf of the United States as well as the people and communities victimized by this tragedy. We will demand that they pay every dime they owe for the damage they've done and the painful losses that they've caused. Those who think that we were either slow on our response or lacked urgency don't know the facts. This has been our highest priority since this crisis occurred.
The political fallout from the spill continued Thursday with the resignation of the head of the government agency responsible for regulating offshore drilling. Elizabeth Birnbaum's departure from the Minerals Management Service follows several damning revelations about her agency, including the news that it exempted BP from a comprehensive environmental review of the project that led to the spill. Although Birnbaum formally resigned, multiple news outlets are reporting she was fired. Scrutiny, meanwhile, is increasing on the ties between BP and Energy Secretary Stephen Chu. In 2007, BP awarded the bulk of a $500 million grant to the University of California, Berkeley laboratory, where Chu was then director. Chu has been working closely with BP executives in the aftermath of the spill. BP's former chief scientist, Stephen Koonin, now works directly with Chu as Undersecretary of Energy for Science. Koonin has been recused from any involvement with the spill response because of his BP ties. We'll have more on the oil spill after headlines. The House has approved a measure that would allow the Pentagon to repeal the ban on openly gay and bisexual service members known as Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The repeal would require approval of top military commanders following the completion of an internal Pentagon review due by December 1st. The measure was attached to the annual Pentagon policy bill by a vote of 234 to 94. The overall bill is expected to come up for vote today. The House move came shortly after the Senate Armed Services Committee approved a similar measure backing the repeal. In other news from Capitol Hill, the Senate's approved a nearly $60 billion measure that includes continued funding for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The bill includes full funding of President Obama's deployment of an additional 33,000 troops in his escalation of the Afghan war. In earlier voting, the Senate rejected an amendment from Democratic Senator Russ Feingold of Wisconsin that would have required President Obama to submit a timetable for a U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. A flotilla of 9 aid ships is approaching the Gaza Strip through the Mediterranean Sea in an attempt to break the Israeli blockade and deliver over 10,000 tons of humanitarian goods. Israel's vowed to block the fleet and has prepared a prison for the over 750 passengers aboard the vessels. Organized by the Free Gaza movement, the flotilla is the largest to attempt to breach the Gaza blockade since Israel imposed it 3 years ago. Israel's forcefully stopped at least 3 other Free Gaza sailings since January 2009. The Israeli government, meanwhile, continues its crackdown on Palestinian activists who campaign for the equal treatment of Israel's Arab citizens. On Thursday, Amir Makhoul of the Popular Committee for the Defense of Political Freedom inside Israel was charged with espionage for allegedly providing intelligence to the Shia group Hezbollah. Another Palestinian activist, Dr. Omar Saeed, has also been charged with spying for Hezbollah. The Israeli government's case appears to rest almost entirely on Makhoul and Saeed's testimony while in Israeli custody, where their families claim they were subjected to torture and abuse. A top United Nations official is preparing to urge the Obama administration to end CIA drone strikes on alleged militant suspects abroad. In an interview with the New York Times, Philip Alston, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial summary or arbitrary executions, said he'll issue a report next week concluding that drone attacks should be in the hands of regular armed forces, not intelligence agencies. Alston says he's based his call in large part on the complete absence of accountability for CIA attacks. A recent report from the New American Foundation found nearly 1 in 3 people killed by CIA drone attacks in Pakistan is a civilian. The U.S. is believed to have carried out as many as 100 drone attacks in Pakistan since 2008, with most occurring under President Obama. The Obama administration's released its first national security strategy since taking office. The document calls for boosting multilateral cooperation and strengthening international institutions and treaties. But in language echoing the Bush administration on the use of force, the document asserts, quote, the United States must reserve the right to act unilaterally. Speaking in Washington, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said values are at the core of U.S. national security policy.
Values matter to our national security. That should go without saying, but it needs to be not only repeated, but perhaps emblazoned as a set of principles that are guiding us. Democracy, human rights, development are mutually reinforcing, and they are deeply connected to our national interests.
A group of indigenous activists have traveled to Denver this week to protest a uranium mining conference discussing new mining projects on Navajo land. 3 Navajo activists were removed from the conference despite being formally invited to attend one of the sessions. On Thursday, one of the 3, Nadine Padilla of the Multicultural Alliance for Safe Environments, protested her expulsion. And in Peru, the American activist Lori Berenson has been freed on parole after nearly 15 years behind bars. Berenson was convicted in 1996 by hooded Peruvian military judges of collaborating with the rebel group MRTA. She's long maintained her innocence. Berenson had no comment for the media Thursday as she was rushed out of a Lima prison. But shortly before her release, Lori Berenson's father, Mark Berenson, welcomed the newfound freedom for his daughter and his 1-year-old grandson, Salvador.
I'm just happy that Lori and Salvador will be free, that justice has been served in Peru. It's been 14 and a half years that we have waited for this moment, and that's about all we can say now.
Lori Berenson will be required to remain in Peru under the terms of her 5-year parole. You can go to our website for all of our interviews with Lori Berenson and her parents, Rhoda and Mark Berenson, who are with her now in Lima. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with